I didn't have self-confidence. I didn't have, I probably was depressed. And I know my dad was sending me to a psychologist. So I went for like a year and a half. And so what happened is I started listening to that every night before I went to bed. And then when it would go off, the Panasonic cassette recorder would make a popping sound. And then I'd flip the cassette tape, and, you know, the little earbuds I had in the ears, the wired earbud, I'd listen to it. And all of a sudden I became happier. All of a sudden, I saw people seeing me differently, whether I was acting differently or not. But what happened is I started seeing myself differently, and that helped me understand the power of our mind, the power of psychology, the power of visualization. And I started taking that one step further. Was it hard times? Parents divorced? Shit happened. Yes. What's the positives from this? If I did not go through that, I probably wouldn't have walked into that Walden bookstore. I wouldn't have bought that cassette series, and I wouldn't have been down the path I've been for the last 35 plus years of personal self-development and working on myself and getting better and sharpening the axe and focused in on learning like I learned today. If that didn't happen.
Good morning, everyone. velkotuhchiev here, a professional problem solver, coming to you live for another episode of The Overcomers. Today, we have a very exciting guest, very successful man, born in New Jersey, who lives in Atlanta. His name is David Asarnow. He's a visionary, entrepreneurial leader, mentor, and the driving force behind Business Nitrogen, where he applies his expertise in sales, marketing, and premium offers to catalyze business growth. Before starting his company, he propelled 2 businesses to 8-figure revenues, with one reaching $10 million and the other one $45 million. So both within 5-year period, very quickly. As a leading trainer and mentor, David has shared his business acumen at Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes Business Breakthrough International. With a certification in neurolinguistic programming, David crafts business strategies that leverage a deep understanding of human communication. His dedication to business excellence has earned him multiple awards, including 7 ClickFunnels, 2 Comma Club Awards, 2 CCX Awards, the 2018 Marketer of the Year, and recognition as one of the best and brightest companies to work for in 2022 and 2023. He firmly believes in putting people first, in adding value behind of service, and in the power of building real relationships. David is an advocate of human connection, even in our tech-driven world, standing by the idea that people want to talk to people. This ethos informs everything he does and is one of the cornerstones of his success. That's why I'm really excited about David being our guest, because we share the same values. We both believe in people. Chet Holmes is one of my favorite sales guys. I also follow Tony Robbins, and we believe in relationships. So I'm very, very genuinely excited to introduce David to you guys and learn from his story and learn from his wisdom and his amazing capacity as a sales expert. Welcome, David.
Hi, I'm David Asarnow, founder and CEO of business acceleration agency, Business Nitrogen. One of the questions I've always wondered is if I could go back in time and tell my 25-year-old self a piece of advice, something that would change everything, what would it be? And here's what I would say. Forget fear. Fear doesn't exist. Fear only exists in your own mind. What's the hardest lesson I've had to learn as a business owner? For me, it's that I can only control what I can control. That's it. I focus in on positivity. I focus in on the vision on what we want to create. Except I can't push all the levers. I've got to surround myself with an amazing group of people to not only get the work done. In order for you to have true collaboration, you must have trust. You must trust your teams to make decisions and trust your teams to make mistakes, to make them, to own them, to share them with the rest of the team members.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, David, Chet Holmes,
Yeah,
what a great, that's one of my favorite books ever, The Ultimate Sales
the
Machine.
ultimate sales machine. Yes,
Insane. I know his daughter Amanda, and she continues the legacy. She
I know
just,
Amanda very well.
yeah, is she in Atlanta,
No, she's down in Florida
Florida?
when she's not traveling on the road.
Yeah, but she just published a newer version, a little bit more updated with the data, so she's on top of it.
Yes, she is.
And I'm also into NLP. Who's your favorite NLP guy
I wouldn't
or
say
gal?
that I don't say that I have any favorite NLP guy. I
Where do,
really don't.
where do you learn NLP?
I learned from a gentleman, Steve Linder. He's out in Oregon. He was part of Tony's crew for a period of time and uh, contributed, I would say, to Tony's curriculum, or Tony used a lot of what he learned from Steve.
Mm.
But that was about a decade and a half ago that I first wanted to work on NLP. And here's the funny thing: when I first thought about NLP, I was looking at how do I use NLP for business strategies and marketing strategies. When you actually get certified in NLP, it has nothing on how to use it for your business. It's how do you improve yourself? How do you improve your own life? How do you remove these obstacles, blockages, challenges that you faced? So a lot of the training isn't how do we use it in our marketing and our messaging. However, once you understand the principles of communication and that how do you influence yourself, it also says, how do I influence other people to make the decisions that they need to make and that they're going to thank you for afterwards? Because we're not talking about manipulation at all.
Yeah.
I do not believe in manipulating. I do believe that there's a lot of people, and I was reading on your website that there's a lot of people who have blockages, they have challenges. There's the reason why they don't feel that they're worth it. So they sabotage their success. And if we do things the right way in marketing, it opens people up to the possibilities of what they can do, what they can be, what they can have in their life.
Well, I agree with that, and let's get that out of the way. It's not manipulation. It's just, I think it's communication. It's just a higher level of communication, and I'm also all in on relationships. This used to be called the people's business, sales. And our mission is to offer alternative education that leads to complete freedom and thriving relationships. So I think NLP removes the BS of the conversation. That's the way I use it in my sales training. And it just helps with communication a lot.
It's funny. We had a meeting on Monday this week. Someone that I know very well, close to an 8-figure business owner. I introduced two friends together, and the one friend who's a consultant and has built and scaled multiple 8-figure businesses, had some nice exits, and I knew that they could help each other. So I said, let's just get together. And it was funny. The day after, my friend said to me, she's like, "You're like a master at NLP, and I was watching what you were doing and how." And I'm like, honestly, at this point, I don't even know what I was doing. It's become unconscious, and it just become part of me. I have everything you're saying. That sounds fantastic. I don't know. And eventually we want to get to the point when we're learning something and studying that it becomes naturally part of who you are, and you're not thinking about it. It just is. It just is.
Well, most people are not focused. Attention span is out the windows. I do these workshops and I reduce them because I'm so addicted to learning. I don't mind being stuck in a room for 12 hours taking notes and
Me
learning.
too.
So to me, it's not a problem. And when I teach, I also feel like I could live without lunch, without water. I can go on for 12 hours. So for me, it's both ends. As a student and as a teacher, I just love it so much. But some of my students complain, and now I've reduced my workshops to 4 hour workshops. We take four breaks, four long 10-minute breaks each hour, and people are still having hard time focusing and learning. So I mean, some people that they're not paying for the ticket, I have a lot of big businesses that send their salespeople to me, and usually when people don't invest, they're not as focused, they're not like
I like I
sticking
like
with.
to say I like to say when they don't pay attention.
Right, right, that makes a lot of sense. So that's been one of my struggles, and I keep reducing these workshops to smaller and smaller and smaller, and now I'm going to experiment with a new format, which is more online, like Zoom, where
You're gonna have a hard. Can I give you want opinion?
please, yes,
Okay, you're gonna have even a harder time getting people paying attention and engaging. On I see this with clients all the time who want to do a hybrid, and the amount of people and the percentage of people that move forward when they're online is significantly less than when they're in person. There's strategies you can do to get people committed. It's sort of like an ethical buy-in on the front end, asking them a lot of questions. What do you want to achieve out of this? I mean, if you could achieve this in your life, would you give me focus for 4 hours today? If you could do this, would you do that? And then the moment that you see them not, you can say, you remember when you said this? Were you serious, or were you fooling yourself? You call them on it. The other thing that you can do ahead of time is get them dreaming big on their core purpose or their why they want to do what they're doing. Why, listen, you're in a job. If your company put you here, how many of you are here because your company told you to? Yes. Great. How many of you, even though you're here because your company told you how to be here, are willing to do whatever it takes to achieve what it is in your life? Great. Let's find out what it is that you want. And if you spend 30 to 40 minutes helping them unpack what they want, they're going to be much more committed to being engaged, because you're tying and anchoring everything back to whatever it is that they want and what you're teaching and how it helps them do that.
yeah, no, that's definitely a great advice, and I will definitely use that. It makes a lot of sense. So you're saying that if we go online for like hour and a half, I would have even a harder time engaging with them?
I think so. I mean, it's my experience. I have a client of mine that wanted to go virtual, and I said, you can, and here's what I think your results, you may get more people online, but here's what your results are going to be. And I was right. And then he ran a live event, had the people in there, and it was much better results. So, it really depends upon what you're teaching, why they're there, and what do they want to achieve, and what's in it for them. Everything always goes back into what's in it for the person who's in the room, and how can we make sure that they realize that if they put the time, energy, and effort into the training, they'll get it out. I'm a lifelong learner like you. This morning I'm studying. I have an addiction to buying books and
Yeah.
learning and growing and online programs and audibles. And I'm 55 years old, and I think I study and learn more now than I did when I was 45, more than I was 35. It's like the older I get, the more I want to learn. It's kind of interesting.
Do you have books that you bought and you haven't read yet?
I have a few that I bought that I haven't read yet. Yes. But it's not that I'm not going to read them. They go into the priority list. I'm
Yeah,
looking at some sitting right here that I haven't read yet next to me on my pile.
save for later. Yeah. I'm also the same way. I read a lot, and I have such a long list of books that I want to read. It's incredible. But it's good. It's good. I love learning, and I go through those stages of learning and implementing. I don't teach things that I haven't implemented and succeeded myself, and because I really want to help people proactively avoid some of the mistakes that I make, and and some of the failures, so I can give them a shortcut. But everybody has to kind of experience the implementation on their own, and it's good to have somebody who had succeeded, so they could correct their movement. So I'm a big fan of learning. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing. We usually have a tradition, and I think there's a ripple effect that skips generation. So, would you share with us about your grandparents on
Sure.
both your mother and your father's side, and then share with us a little bit about your parents? Like, what were they into? What are some principles they passed on to you? Some good examples, some warnings. What profession? What were their superpowers?
Well, I think I need to go back to a great grandparents first,
Okay, that's even more interesting. We're all
because
about that.
and I only knew one.
Are you gonna
And
start from father's side or mother's side?
am I what?
From your dad's side or your mom's side?
The
Great
one
grand.
that I knew,
Yeah.
my great grandmother. I knew my great grandmother. She passed away when I was a freshman in college.
Okay. She was
So
on your mom's side?
my mom's father's mother.
Okay. Very good.
The others passed away before I was born. In fact, my first name and middle name are named after two great grandfathers that I had. They came to the United States as immigrants, and they had a hard time getting a job. They didn't speak English, and as many, it's interesting. It's funny you bring this up, because last night I was for Thanksgiving, I had a dinner at my daughter's fiance's family, and they all immigrated here from the former Soviet Union in the 90s. And so it was interesting to hear their journey and the parallels. But there's something that happens when you come into this country, and one of the things they gave thanks for, this is the greatest country in the world. And the people who live here and have grown up here, and especially the youth of today, don't appreciate why so many people want to come here, because you can create anything. They came here with less than $200. Every single one of them came to this country with less than $200 in their pocket. My barber, he came here about 10 years ago from Brazil with $10 in his pocket. He's now got a million. He's like one of the wealthiest people in his industry at $1.5 million a year business in less than 10 years from having $10 in his pocket. My great grandparents came here. They didn't make that kind of money, but my one grandfather was in the shoe business. He negotiated making shoes that he would get paid on production. He made double the shoes of anyone else. He ended up buying property in Western New Jersey, and then it was so the family could get together. And then before he knew it, it became a resort.
Thank God for capitalism.
Exactly. And so the reason I wanted to start with my grandparents is I do think that what happens is things skip generations, because the easier you have it, the harder it is for you, because you expect more. You expect things. I mean, I hope I didn't spoil my kids too much. I seriously hope I didn't spoil my kids too much.
You probably did.
I know I did. And but when I was growing up, my grandparents, okay, they were the first generation to go to college. They worked in pharmacy. They got into one of my grandfather's brother became a doctor. On the other side, everyone got involved in sales. My grandfather was in sales. My grandfather decided at 50 years old to sell everything, to give it up. But here's what happened. Everyone has a catalyst that changes everything for them, and it's how you look at it. So when I was 3 years old, my grandfather was 50. And he moved away from New Jersey. They sold their house, they sold their cars, and they put everything into a business, their whole life savings, and people thought they were crazy. And when I was 4 years old, they came up. My brother was a baby. My sister was 2 years old. My grandparents came and took me down to Florida with them for a couple months. My parents luckily let them do that. And so while they were starting this business, I was there with them. I grew up in this business. I did everything from, it was an orthotics and prosthetics business, and they did hospital beds and wheelchair rentals. As a little kid, he had me cleaning wheelchairs cleaning the stuff that came back. I would sit there. I mean, in the hot stock room, I can smell the must from it today, even just thinking about it. And my grandfather made me work. So, but here's the thing. My family didn't have a lot of money. I mean, I went to college on a Pell Grant, and I didn't even think I was poor, but to get a Pell Grant means you're pretty broke, right? And so I had that, and I took out loans and I worked. But what happened is when I wanted something as a kid, I needed to buy it myself. So as a 7 or 8 year old living in Jersey, I would knock on people's doors and say, can I rake your leaves when there was leaves on the ground? Can I mow your lawn? Can I shovel the snow? And when people would say, well, what do you want? How much you want to charge? I said, you pay me what you think it's worth. People just paid me. I made money. I delivered newspapers on my bike. And, you know, driving around, you throw in the newspapers. It was a bag. I mean, the old fashioned way of doing it. To this day, I bought my first bicycle. It was a 10-speed bike. It's like a dark blue, purplish blue. I remember it's Lotus brand. And I think it was $213, which is a lot of money when I was 14 years old. And I paid for it myself with money that I earned. I washed dishes when I was 13. I remember it. I got in a fight. We got in trouble. My friends and I, we lied about our age, by the way, so that way we could wash dishes because we weren't old enough. But we got paid cash anyway by Johnny. Johnny was the manager, and my buddies and I were sitting in the back, and we got in a water fight with each other. And he came in the back, and I remember, what the? Anyway, but I tell you all this, why? Because this was my grandparents' upbringing. This was my grandparents telling me those times that I spent with my grandparents and grandfather at work. It was like, if you want something, you have to earn it yourself. If you want something. So guess what? I was in sports. I was in varsity sports. I ran track. I played soccer, and I worked as a stock person at a place that's Jamesway, which is like Walmart today, like Kmart. I washed dishes. I bussed tables. I'd go in on Saturday and Sunday morning, and I would clean up the bar and restock the bar because no one else wanted to do the dirty work. I'd do anything if it made me money. So you ask why? You have to create a burning desire and realize that no one is going to hand anything to you. And I got lucky. See, when my brother and sister started coming down to see my grandparents, my brother and sister would hang out with my grandmother and go to the beach in Florida and do all that fun stuff. But I said, no, I want to go to work with my grandfather. So I did.
Nice.
So anyway, that's the grandparents' influence.
And your parents?
My mom stayed at home take care of us, and my dad was in sales. And his brothers, one is a teacher, a PhD college professor, and the other one was in sales. And it's funny, I remember when I first graduated college and I was getting involved in sales to begin with, because I worked in corporate America for a period of time. And I said, can you give me any advice? He said, yeah, talk to my younger brother, Alan, the one who didn't go to college, and he makes more money than all of us put together. Go ask him for advice. And I did.
Yeah. I understand how you feel and where you're coming from, because I'm an immigrant. I came from Bulgaria, and I was a law student in Bulgaria. So I was going to graduate law because my first dream was to be a soccer player. My parents killed that dream real fast.
Yeah.
I wanted to be an actor, but I guess I didn't have the cojones to go all in for that. And actors were making big money in Bulgaria. They were all broke alcoholics. They weren't
Well,
like
they were broke in Ukraine too until they become the president of the country.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, good point. And so I came when I was 18, 19. I went to university in law school because I went to experimental high school and I studied law from a very early age, from like 8th grade.
Wow.
And I was preparing myself to be a lawyer. I watched the movie The Devil's Advocate when I came to the States, and it was you've seen that movie with Keanu
Robert
Reeves?
De Niro, right?
No, Al Pacino actually is
Al
the devil.
Pacino. Okay.
But
Yeah, I remember it. Yes.
I was like, man, I'm gonna be this badass lawyer, and they're gonna make me do things that are against my morals, and I don't want to be super rich lawyer, very successful lawyer who is being controlled like a puppet. And that's the reality, really. Like these great lawyers always serve somebody's interest. So I decided to leave law school, to stay in America as an immigrant, and to pursue sales, because sales is kind of like combination of everything that I wanted. It gives you the freedom to build your own world. You don't have restrictions. And does it take convincing? Yeah, I still used everything from my law background in sales. So I did all these jobs. I came with $300. I guess that's the number that everybody.
$200 to $300. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was underage, so I had to bribe the HR person so I could work in restaurants as a bartender. But first, doing I worked at a motel, and I was doing the dirty jobs. Then I became a dishwasher and a maintenance guy, garbage boy. Oh, first I was a plunger boy. Because I didn't speak the language. So I did incredible job as a plunger boy. Then I was a garbage man. Then I became a maintenance. Then they put me on a night shift. I'm like, that's not even real work. So then I started a second career as a busboy, as a dishwasher. So I've washed dishes, and everybody was shying away from those breakfast pans with the eggs, and I was cleaning those really well. So they gave me more hours. Then I became a busboy and eventually a waiter and a bartender. And I moved to Florida and I bartended in Florida and wait tables in Florida. Then I moved to Chicago and I was a bartender in Chicago, a couple jobs. And then people were like, "You need to be in sales. Like you're a great salesperson." Because when I went to wait tables or bartend, I wasn't looking at just taking orders. I wanted to make $50 a person on tips. So I knew I
Mhm.
could give them exceptional experience and make them buy more expensive stuff. So they were like, "Dude, you got to be in sales." And I was still lazy at the time. And I was like between real estate and car sales. And I started selling cars. Real estate, I had to pass a license. So that's my story. Then I started my company 8 years ago to do sales training and marketing training and teaching relationships, because I built my business around self-generated opportunities and build my own book of business. And not a lot of salespeople do that. Most salespeople are transactional, just waiting for opportunities. And I was like, it's so much easier to work with people that love you and respect you. But I know the where you're coming from, and we appreciate America so much more than people who were born here. Nothing against them. They were very fortunate to be born here. And this is still the only country in the world where you can do what I've done and what the guy from Brazil has done and all these immigrants. There's no other country where you can go and and just build a business with hard work and consistency. And it's still the last free country. But I'm sure that your brother, son-in-law, did he pass the test? Did you put him
My
through the test?
What's that?
Like,
Oh, soon to be son-in-law.
soon to be son, not
Soon to,
yet. We haven't
not yet.
closed the
Soon
deal
to
yet.
be.
Good.
Yes, got a couple
But
months.
I'm sure that him and his family probably told you that the things have changed since the 90s, because
Yeah,
America was amazing when I came. Like
yeah.
people were flipping cars every 2 years. Everybody had money, and it's been declining since then. Like things, I remember being mad for not able to spend $20 on a full tank of gas, and I drove a V8 at the time. So I'm like, oh man, I gotta go back and get my change. I would like prepay $20 for a full
Yeah.
tank. I'm like, oh, I gotta go back and get my change now. And going to the grocery shop and filling up a cart of food and spend like less than $50, like $30 on
Well,
whole week worth of food.
things have
Now
changed.
now I go to Costco and I spend $1,000 like it's nothing. It's like,
Uh,
whoa, what did we buy?
things have changed. Yes.
So I'm sure they're noticing a lot of freedoms being stripped away, because coming from Eastern Europe, there's a contrast. Like you there's no police there, so you don't disrespect people who are physically stronger than you, because you're gonna get your ass kicked and nobody's gonna defend you.
Hmm.
the opposite here is people can say whatever they want to say. So free speech was a real advantage for America. There's no free speech in communist countries.
Yeah, I know.
You get in trouble, Here you can say whatever you want as long as you don't touch people, and you don't abuse them physically. You can abuse them verbally as much as you want. Even the commercials like Pepsi and Coca-Cola were going against each other. So the freedom of speech is one of the things that I appreciated, and now it's being stripped away slowly.
Yeah.
Not just this freedom, but other freedoms as well. And I think I didn't mean to go on making this about myself. It's about you.
Well,
But
but here's the thing. I triggered something obviously in what I was saying that
yeah,
you could relate to,
yeah,
right?
you did.
And you're right. The conversation did go last night that especially the youth of today don't understand and appreciate how good they have it. They're celebrating for things that they think that they think, and the protests and all that in the street, that if they actually lived in the countries that they're celebrating the ideals, they may not even be alive.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's just interesting what's going on.
And I feel like I want to protect this freedom. I feel American because America has given me. See, I left Bulgaria and I didn't look back because there is possible things in Bulgaria and impossible things in Bulgaria. There are some things that it doesn't matter how hard you work, doesn't matter how brilliant of an idea you have.
Yeah.
There are some things you cannot do. They're just gonna come and punk you, and they're gonna make it impossible for. And if you talk too much, maybe they'll take you out. So, and that's how it is in Ukraine and Africa and Middle Eastern world and Asia. There's
Yeah.
some restrictions. There's not too much freedom, no matter how great your idea is and how great you work.
I
And
know.
I don't I mean to be extreme. There are some levels of success, but it's because those people were connected to someone who protected them. You can't be a regular Joe and build a business without having
But,
the right connections.
and one of the things, hearing your story, telling people how, you guys are here and how lucky you are that your company invested in you. Because if you lived somewhere else, it's like telling your story is so important, because somehow people in this country need to realize how great it is, to quote Lee Greenfield, it's great to be an American, where at least I
Yeah.
know I'm free. It's true. And you know, it's what created this country. I know there's a lot of people who are, against capitalism, but if you don't create, and I'm saying create, if you don't create money, if you don't create wealth, you can't have these social programs that they want. You can't have,
Right.
something's got to pay for it. Someone's got to. So all these people are evil. Well, all these people are help contribute to the fabric of society that gives people the opportunity to earn. Okay. Anyway, this is obviously, we're going down a different rabbit trail than growing a business, but it's a philosophical belief. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to not grow up with a lot of money. I'm grateful that if I wanted something, I had to go make it happen. And I'm grateful that for the lessons that I've learned when I've lost. And one of the things, when you talk about, losing it all, okay, great. You get an opportunity to show that you know what you're doing. You can create it again. And it gives you that story. And most of the times people don't just have a straight up. There's usually a pathway up and down as you go along that pathway. And I was reading and listening to I listened to a lot of YouTube videos on from entrepreneurs and stories and interviews. And so many times when people like myself, and I think you, when your back's been up against the wall, it gives you an opportunity to prove who you are. And that bounce back story tends to be so much more sweeter, and you appreciate what you have so much more than the first time you make something.
Yeah. I actually purposely put my back against the wall sometimes. Clean up my account and make sure that I stay on the edge, because
Yes.
it's very easy to get in the comfort zone. It's very easy to take your foot to become comfortable with achievements. And I realized this is a great country because it took me a couple of weeks of work to buy my first car. And in Eastern Europe, people have to bet their condo and get a 10-year loan from the bank to buy a used car from Germany. That's the car for their lifetime. It
Wow.
it doesn't change. So that was my experience growing up. You buy one car, this is the car, protect it, make sure you wash it every day. And here, it took me like 3 weeks to buy a car. I'm like, wow, as long as I go to work, I can always get out of this. Just gave me hope that even if I drop the ball and if I go broke, I can always rebuild. I can always rebuild. It only takes certain time for me to go back to work, and I can always gain more money. And now it's getting harder and harder. Like if I was to come in today's economy, it wouldn't be as easy as it was 20, 30 years ago.
And it's
But it's
not
still
easy. But
easier.
it's not easy for anyone. Nothing is easy. The current situation of our economy is created challenges. I was discussing this with someone this week. Home prices are going up faster than incomes are going up. When your home price goes up, taxes go up. Interest rates are higher. So the affordability index is significantly lower than it was in the past. So things are going to have to change. Who knows what 2024 would look like? I could speculate, but that's not my expertise. So I only focus in on things that I know and what I do, which is helping people build their company, sell things, and, creating amazing marketing strategy.
Mm. Well, we're going to get into that a little bit later. First, I want to ask you, what is your first conscious moment when you realize you're alive, that you're a human, and you're like, all right, I'm here? When you realize I exist?
What is my first conscious moment? I was probably about 1.5, 2 years old. I remember sitting in my living room of my house playing with, I know, even know who it was, because we knew each other into high school. We don't keep in touch anymore, but I knew who it was. So I was probably about 1.5, 2 years old. I remember that situation. I don't know if at the time, obviously at the time, I wasn't thinking, "Oh, I'm here, I'm alive," but
You must have said to yourself, I'm remembering this.
no, I remember it because what I remember is I grabbed his toy and he started crying, and I, wasn't willing. I took what I wanted, and I got in trouble for it.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's why. It was different emotions. Different
Probably the first
emotions.
time I got yelled at.
Yeah.
Probably like, David, what are you doing?
What was your first love? Who was your first love, or what?
My first love, my wife. We met when we were 17.
Well, that's the politically correct answer. Oh, you met when you were 17. Okay,
Yeah, we were kids.
that's awesome.
Yeah, we were
High
kids.
school sweethearts.
Yes. Well, I was a freshman in college. I just happened to be young, and she was a senior in high school, even though we're 4 months different.
Me too. I was a young person in college too. By the time I was 18, I was already in college. But tell me, is there something particular that happened in high school that led you to the way you are today and what you're doing today? Did you know who you want to be when you grow up? Tell me about the
No.
high school years.
Um, I
What were
ran.
you into?
I played soccer. I ran track.
What position were you in? I'm a soccer player.
Well, I was a goalie.
Goalie? Okay, I'm a striker, so we would be good
Um, I
training
was
partners.
I was a goalie. I liked
Let's say
that.
half of the team. It's a very important job.
That was always what I liked. I like diving at balls and people's feet and stuff like that.
Protecting your team. The
Yeah.
goalie is the last line of
And
defense.
still to this day I protect people. So it's kind of interesting. Um, you know, it's like you've got to have who's got your back. You've got to have the people that you trust back. I ran track. I ran hurdles, 400 hurdles, 110 high hurdles, and that was fun. And it's interesting. What also helped me become who I am. My parents got divorced when I was 13 years old
Mm.
and separated at 12. And so in my mind, I became a little bit reclusive. When I was 16 years old, so I was already a junior in high school. So I kept to myself a lot. I didn't have a big friend group. I wasn't part of the party crowd and all of that. And so when I was 16, I remember going to the mall with my dad, and I said, I'm going to walk by myself. And I went into a Walden bookstore. So there used to be bookstores. It wasn't all Barnes and Nobles. There was a bookstore, small, and they were in every mall, called Walden Books. And I went into the self-help section at 16-year-old boy, went in the self-help section. And I just started looking at titles because I didn't have self-confidence. I probably was depressed. And I know my dad was sending me to a psychologist. So I went for like a year and a half, and I needed something else. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a circular cassette stand. So yes, I am dating myself, but it was a rack that had little cassette players on it. And what I saw was I started looking at those, and one said increasing self-confidence, hypnosis, self-hypnosis, and guided and subliminal reprogramming. And I bought that. I didn't tell my dad I bought it. I just bought it. And so what happened is I started listening to that every night before I went to bed. And then when it would go off, the Panasonic cassette recorder would make a popping sound, and then I'd flip the cassette tape, and the little earbuds I had in the ears, the wired earbud, I'd listen to it. And all of a sudden I became happier. All of a sudden, I saw people seeing me differently, whether I was acting differently or not. But what happened is I started seeing myself differently. And that helped me understand the power of our mind, the power of psychology, the power of visualization. And I started taking that one step further, and I started went back to the same bookstore, and I said, okay, what can I find? And I found a book on sports performance psychology and the power of visualization, and how the Russians were training their athletes through visualization. And they gave case studies about the marksmen who went out and shot at the range compared to those who visualized and went to the range, and those who visualized alone. Those who visualized alone performed just as well as the people who went to the range, and those who went to the range and visualized performed that much better. So that's I started doing that for track. When I would run a 400 hurdle race, I would shut my eyes. I'd lay down on the track, on the infield of the track, and I'd take a stopwatch out. And if my time was not good enough, I would run the race again. And usually I'd finish the races within tenths of a second of whatever I could run it in my mind. And so I tell you this because, when we talk about how we see ourselves, visualization, I mean, so when I look at it now, yeah, was it hard times? Yes. Parents divorced, shit happened? Yes. What's the positives from this? If I did not go through that, I probably wouldn't have walked into that Walden bookstore. I wouldn't have bought that cassette series, and I wouldn't have been down the path I've been for the last 35 plus years of personal self-development and working on myself and getting better and sharpening the axe and focused in on learning like I learned today, if that didn't happen. So yeah, and a lot of times people do that, and they sit and they blame other people, and, well, you did this to me. Here's the thing: when people say, like, especially kids, you're making me mad. No, I can't make you mad. Only you can make yourself mad. Mm-hmm. And see, these are the things we start learning the more that we study.
Look what you made me do.
Look what you made me do. I didn't make you do anything. Your free will, you have freedom of choice. You don't have freedom of consequences. It's like all these kids that are getting canceled and people are losing their jobs for what they post online. You can say whatever the heck you want. Doesn't mean that there's not going to be consequences for what you do. That's your choice.
Yeah, I agree. Well, a couple weeks ago, I interviewed Dr. DeMartini. You remember that documentary, The Secret?
Yeah.
He's from there, and he's been doing it for like 50, 60 years. He's got an amazing story. If you have time, you can catch up on our episode. And he doesn't believe in emotional trauma. He's been healing people for 50 years because
Yeah.
he believes there's always something great. There's always a huge blessing that comes from those terrible moments. And he even went to the extreme about sharing a case with a lady that was raped by 100 men,
Mm.
and it was like really really bad situation. And as long as you're accountable enough to share what good came out of it, as long as you can get away from the victim mindset and go in retrospect and be like, all right, what happened after that? Like,
Yes.
where did the direction? What was the positive thing that happened? And then if you dwell on that, on the positive thing that happened, just like you did just now, yeah, no child wants their parents to be separated, good, bad. No child wants that. It's a nightmare. That was my nightmare as a child. I grew up in society where people just didn't divorce, and my parents were fighting a lot, me growing up, and they threatened each other to leave each other, and they still fight. We were together yesterday. They're still together, but they come from generation of of when you break the vase, you repair it with little glue.
Yeah.
You make it work. So, so they never separated, but they were threatening each other all the time, and I was so afraid they would. And
And now
my
you're probably saying, guys, you're not happy. Either fix it and
oh
work on
yeah,
yourselves, look at yourselves and work on your communication, or do something different.
I did that like 10 years ago. I was like, all right, you need to separate, and they were like, how dare you saying that? Both of them like
Well, then stop complaining.
I had individual conversation with both, and my mom was like, "How dare you? I love your father." I'm like, "Well, why are you abusing him?" So
Yeah.
it's funny, but they come from a different generation, and so even though this was probably the hardest moment for you, because from two
Well,
caring
as a
parents,
kid, it was hard.
yeah, especially as a teenager, like you're developing yourself, and you probably felt lost. But like you concluded, you wouldn't go into self-development if everything was fine and dandy.
Yeah, and
And
that's probably why I didn't have girlfriends in high school, is because I didn't want rejection, because all the rejection I felt that I had faced. And it's funny, I went the total opposite, and I went into a career where you live rejection all the time. That's building a company, that's
right,
in sales. And today the viewpoint is totally shifted, that they're not rejecting me, they're not ready. They're not ready to grow their business, they're not ready to grow their life, they're not ready to invest in the best of the best that can really help them. They're willing to settle. And so it's like funny how we can change the perception because of the experiences that we had.
yeah. I just recently, in the last few years, came to that maturity with business to business. Like I come from car sales, which is really hardcore.
Which is very different than selling $1 million programs.
Yeah, and I wanted to, when people say no to me, I would never give up. I was like a pit bull,
Hmm.
and my managers would have to be like, "Hey, you need to let these folks go," and I'm like, "No, we're not finished yet." And recently, B2B is completely different animal. And recently, one of my mentors suggested, like a couple years ago, when somebody says, after I'm satisfied with my presentation, which I'm my biggest critic, so I would, if I know I did a good job proactively convincing them and covering every objection, and they still say I got to think about it, then I recognize that's not my problem, and I would say, all right, thanks for letting me know. And now they're kind of thrown off, and they're like, well, aren't you gonna say something? I'm like, no, I'm not gonna stand between you and um, your problem.
Yeah.
You're tolerating this problem. That's your toxic relationship with your problem. That has nothing to do with me. You're
Well, there's another way to get it. When they say, I got to think about it, can I ask what you're thinking about? Well, I'm not sure. It's like, well, I've got to,
It's a big investment.
It's a big investment. So, well, let me ask you the question. Is it the product or the service? Or the price or the service? Is it the price or the product? Is it the price or the service? Because it will all of a sudden get them to think, and they have to tell you if it's the price, or if it's the price, you haven't created enough value. And if it's a service, well, tell me what. So there's 3 questions that I've used that have generated hundreds of millions of dollars. Would you like to hear those questions?
Yes.
Would you like to hear how that all came about?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had an opportunity to build a new division for a company. And I was in my 30s. And I'd grown up in the company. I was there 5 years. I was going to leave. I got an opportunity to go to a startup, and my boss convinced me not to leave. He said, what would make you stay? And I said, I want to start a new division of the company. It's a 50-year-old company that's $68 million in sales. I want to start a new division of the company. I want to go after $1 billion companies. And he said, yes. Why did I want that? Because I figured this is my opportunity to learn how to be an entrepreneur under someone else's umbrella, where I get free reign to build something new.
That's smart.
So I did.
Because I spent my own capital and I ruined my credit.
I've done that before, but that's after. So what happened is I would call big companies for cold calling them all the time. And I'd call at the top. So I went all the way up to the top person that I could, whoever was the top decision maker. There was a CEO of the company, or if it was the head of product development, because I did a lot of custom type work. McDonald's was one of those people. And for 6 months, I'd call Ken, who was head of product development, and he never returned my phone calls or my voicemail messages. And so I read in a book somewhere. I don't even remember where I read this. And it was this person who mailed a sneaker in a FedEx box and used the line, now that I'm a foot in your door, may I please have 5 minutes of your time? So I'm like, I'm going to use that, but I'm going to put a stronger hook on it. So I bought a sneaker. I put a note on the shoelace, attached to the shoelace, that said, hey, Ken, my name's David Asarnow. Now that I have my foot in your door, may I please have 5 minutes of your time? I'll be calling you on Friday at 10 a.m. to talk about how I can help McDonald's increase their brand recognition and profitability. Boom. Bold claim, right? Because I was saying, give me 5 minutes and I'm going to show you how I can. McDonald's, best branding company in the world back then. I don't eat the food today, haven't in decades. But back then, it was the biggest in the branding and marketing. You saw them everywhere in print and radio and TV. You heard them everywhere.
They still are.
They still are. I don't watch much TV these days. So
and the number one real estate owner in the world.
That's true. So I called on Friday, and the funny thing is my heart was pounding. I'm like, will this work? Will this work? And so I called on Friday, and the person who answered the phone was the same person who answered the phone 6 months prior. And she said to me, I said, hi, my name's David Asarnow. I have an appointment with Ken at 10 a.m. And she laughed, and she said, you're the sneaker guy. And I said, yes, I am. She said, let me put you through to Ken. Now, I'm going to tell you the story because I want people to start, who are listening to this right now, to start thinking of the psychology of what happens and how most people react under pressure. So Ken says to me, I said, hey, Ken, my name's David Asarnow. I'm calling for our appointment. He said, that was creative. He said, you got your 5 minutes, go. That's what he said. Now, what are most people going to do if someone said, okay, you've got 5 minutes, go sell me? What are they going to do?
They would start pitching. They wouldn't ask any questions.
They'd start giving their elevator pitch, their spiel. Yeah. I said, Ken, I've got 2 questions. Ken said, it's your 5 minutes. Do whatever you want. Once again, most people would go right into the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, Ken, I want you to think of the best vendors that McDonald's does business with. Why are they the best? Why do you consider them better than anyone else? He said, it's your 5 minutes. You want to know that? And that's what you want to do? You're not going to tell me about your company or what you do? And I said, well, let me find out first, why are they the best? And he started telling me. And then I said, tell me more. And I went down. And then I said, now, once he got done telling me why they're the best, I said, let me ask you one other question. I said, Ken, if the best of the best could serve you better in any way, how would they serve you better in ways that they're not doing exactly, you wish they also did this? What would that be? And he said, you've got 1 minute and 36 seconds left. Are you not going to tell me about you? I said, Ken, how could they serve you better? He said, one thing, they'd bring me new ideas. That's it. Now, I knew what they did really well and what they didn't. And I knew I had almost out of time. I said, Ken, I got one more question. If I could show you right now that I can not only meet the best of the best, but I could serve you in ways that you just told me that the best of the best aren't serving you, would you give me 15 minutes in person for me to show you what I'm talking about? He said, it depends. What are you talking about? I just bought myself more time. I said, Ken, McDonald's is the best of the best in branding, in visual branding, in TV. I said, but you're missing something. I said, McDonald's does really well with visual and auditory. They don't really touch kinesthetic. And my whole philosophy is, if I can show you, and I have created something that I want to bring to you that can show you how McDonald's can create a visual, a kinesthetic impression in people's mind, tying it together with visual and auditory, that would help you have even greater brand recognition, which would lead to greater sales and profitability for McDonald's. Can I bring it to you? He said, what are you talking about? And I said, I took the concept of what you're doing, and I created a mock-up. My company created a stereolithography, which is 3D printing today, mock-up of packaging with the M embossed in it. So when they're not only touching it and seeing it, they're feeling the M, and it's putting a visual representation. And I said, I'd like to bring it to show you. And he said, he's laughed, and he said, can't you just put it in a FedEx box like you did the sneaker? And I said, I could. I said, but with all respect, Ken, I believed that you would want to see this so much that I asked my company to create a design, engineer a design, create a mock-up, and invest $750 in getting that mock-up printed so I could be the FedEx package. You name the time, I'll be there. And Ken, if you don't like what I have to show you or say anytime in that 15 minutes, kick me out of your office and you'll never hear from me again. Is that fair? He laughed.
Well, was that what you really wanted to sell at the time?
No. Yeah. Yes. I knew that well, that's what my company did. We did custom packaging. So what I wanted was
that would mean a big deal for your company if every single
millions of dollars. Yeah. So here's the thing. I got the 15-minute appointment. That 15-minute appointment turned into over 2 hours. And from that, he set up a meeting with the entire product development committee for me to bring new ideas to McDonald's. And at the end of it, they told me it was the best presentation that anyone, current vendor or not vendor, had ever made to McDonald's on new ideas. And less than 6 weeks later, it was worth $1.4 million. I signed a contract with McDonald's.
Did you give him the idea for I'm loving it? So now it's
dun, 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 I'm loving it. No.
NLP. Just tell yourself you're loving it.
Yeah. So we embossed the M in Sunday cups. I came up with the concept of embossing the M into orange juice containers. I came up with it into the plastic car cups. The interesting thing is they wanted us to do the car cups. My company had to turn it down because it would have been about $47 million in revenue, but they didn't have the finances to invest in the equipment. They would have to buy, $20 million in machinery to make it happen. So we couldn't do that. But anyway, the reason I tell you the story is I had 3 questions. How do people serve you well? How could people serve you better? If you don't know what people want and what they like and what they wish that they had, if you can bridge the gap and do both of them, that's bridging the relationship. And those are my three multi-million dollar questions. And I teach still to this day, teach them.
How do people serve you
How
best?
what do you like about, okay, if you have, for instance, you've been through sales, if you're doing sales training, you've worked with sales trainer before. Okay, great. What positive experiences have you had from your sales trainers? They're probably also going to tell you what they didn't like. They said they could do this, they weren't going to do this. But okay, tell me about what they did really well. Okay, now if the sales trainers that you had could serve you better, could have done a better job for you in any way, how could they have done better? Okay, tell me more. And then if I could show you right now, like if I could demonstrate that not only could I give you the best of the best, but I could serve you and give you and your people and your team the skills and the implementation ability that others haven't been able to, would you be willing to do a trial? Would you be willing to have a meeting in person? Would you be willing? So you're changing the paradigm where they can connect the dots, and you're giving them hope for a future that they haven't been able to have elsewhere.
So the third question is going for the appointment.
Going for whatever you want that outcome of that to be.
Got it.
I always like to have, I don't like to go, and when you're selling a big deal and you're selling something, I don't necessarily always go for people like, I can sell anything. No, I don't think that I'm the best salesman. I ask a lot of questions. My favorite book when I was growing up was Curious George. Curious George asked a lot of questions. And so I asked a lot of questions, and the big thing is you just got to listen. When other people are talking, you've got to remember that you have, one mouth and two ears for a reason, to listen 66% more than you're speaking.
I'm obsessed with questions. I love questions. And my next question is, if you could go back in time and you could edit a certain situation in your life or relive that situation with the wisdom that you have now and just observe that moment. You get in the DeLorean and you type in year and date and time. You have these options. You can use your wisdom to edit that moment and have a different response, so you could change the consequences, or just observe that high peak, that moment, and enjoy it one more time.
Well, can I tell you, I've been asked this question before in
Come on.
in a different way. Someone said, I'll give you, if you could go, knowing what you know now, you could go back to when you were a teenager and live your life all over again, or I'll give you $100 million right now. Most people would go back and relive their life because they could change things.
Really?
Most people would. Here's the thing. If you said, would I relive anything? Would I change anything from there? Here's the interesting, there's a reason why I would not want to even go back or even think about that, because I wouldn't want to change anything that I have today. Because if something changed, if you go back to the future, if one thing changed, he may not have been born. If one thing changed, my kids may not be here. I would not take that risk and that opportunity to not have what I have today.
That's why Doc wanted to destroy the car.
I know.
So almost every single guest doesn't want to change anything. I interviewed Ray Cash Care. He's like a Navy SEAL who witnessed the death of his father. His father got shot in front of him, kind of like the Batman story. And he wouldn't even change that. He said that led to so many great blessings in my life,
So, at least I know I'm in good company then, not willing to go back.
Yeah, nobody wants to go back. There's a lot of people that don't even want to relive other moments. They're just excited about the future. But I invite
or the present, or even the present. I'm excited about the present and what we're going to create in the future because of the actions we take today.
Yeah, I invite some great people on my podcast. That's why. So is there any moment that you want to just re-experience again? Just like
I re-experience moments all the time of a very vivid imagination. I can close my eyes. I can almost teleport myself and see things as in 3D color as if I'm there. And so, no, there's nothing that I would want to need to do.
I also have a wild imagination, and um, I had a period of my life where I abused my brain and my body with drugs and alcohol, and then I took a break from that, and now I live a life of complete sobriety. I don't do anything that could affect my could control me in any way,
Mm-hmm.
and my dreams are so vivid. It's like I have double life. I'm looking forward to falling asleep because my dreams are so real,
Mm-hmm.
and I also am able to imagine things as I'm present with you. So it's like a second. I'm sure you can too.
Yeah, and
I
something's
don't see a picture, but I kind of experience it.
I can see pictures, and
Or if I close my eyes, I see a picture,
I can see it in here, even like up here.
like a second screen.
Yeah, second screen in my mind. It's kind of weird. Um, Something that I don't know if you've ever tried Wim Hof breathing.
Every single guest on my podcast is a Wim Hof maniac. Every single.
Wait, so we're connecting the dots here. People who are successful
Yeah.
won't
But
go back
every
to the past
single
and change
guest-
anything, and they, So here's what happens when you do Wim Hof. Have you done Wim Hof breathing?
No, but I think it's.
I think it's called as a clue. Enough people have been telling you. So here's what you do. After you've done the breathing exercises, you just sit there and you close your eyes and go into that third eye, that space in your head, and see where it takes you and see what you can see. I've actually had time warp transporting type things that have happened after doing that.
So, what is the best source to learn the Wim Hof breathing techniques?
Just Google Wim Hof, and he's got a website and a program you can sign up for.
You gotta sign up for the program. You can't just watch a YouTube video. If I want to start today,
I'm sure you could just go to YouTube and put it in, but you also can go to the membership site and sign up for his program that walks you through it.
Is that the guy that does the cold plunge and all this freezing stuff?
That there's things along with that. I've done the cold plunge. So here's what's kind of cool. I did that with the visualization, and then I've done a cold plunge afterwards.
So what's the connection?
I don't know, nothing. They're two separate things.
But is it the same guy, the Iceman?
Here, just go. Well, I'm not going to Google it right now.
I'm going to do it. I'll sign up for his program. So you can't learn the breathing.
I'll email you the link afterwards. I'll email you the link. Let me write a note right now.
On our next conversation, we'll talk about the breathing techniques. But every single guest, this is insane. Every single guest from different walks of life is like, oh yeah, since I started doing the Wim Hof, it's a game changer. Every single guest. So I'll definitely.
You made me think about it this morning too, because I did hot yoga this morning, and then afterwards went into like a meditation type thing, which, anyway.
Is it part of your routine to do the breathing techniques every day?
Not every day.
You do it when you're
anxious? I wish I could say that I do it every day. I don't do it every day.
What is it that you do every single day? It's non-negotiable. You've done it over 80, 90 times, and now it's easier to do than not to do, that most people don't do. Because I think the difference between overachievers or successful people, elite people, is they do the easy things every day, and easy things are easy to do and easy not to do. So that's the separation. It's just the consistency, the compound interest, if you want. So what is one good habit that you do every day, whether on your vacation or not, but it's not negotiable?
Every day for probably, I don't know, 20, 30 years. Maybe since I was 16 and I started listening to that increasing self-confidence video. Every night before I go to bed, I figure out what I want to work. My mind is going to work on that night while I'm sleeping. I'm going to ask my guardian angels to connect me with those that I need to connect with and those who need to meet me, and have our angels connect each other and let us each know, that give us a sign that we need to talk. Such as, listen, I didn't know you. I don't know how you actually even found me, but you were very persistent and you kept following up with me. And I took that as a sign that we needed to connect. And now once we connected, I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of commonalities here amongst us in our story as we're talking today for the first time. So every night, and the reason every night before you go to bed, I think, is one of the most important time, because your subconscious or unconscious mind processes 7 to 10 times more whatever it is the last thing you think about before you go to bed. To this day, I will pick something that I want to listen to. I'll turn on frequency type music, different hertz level music. Why? I want
Does
it.
this work? I've always looked at it and I'm like, I
I
wonder if
think
it
it
works.
does. I think it does, or I wouldn't do it.
I know hypnosis works. I know hypnosis is powerful. And
Yeah,
especially for people that listen to other people's opinions, I recommend it. People that are led to change their own belief system based on what others think of them.
part though of hypnosis is, we have blocks as humans, and many times we don't know why. So what happened is, we had a trauma, we had a challenge when we were younger, and our body's response was to protect us. And that's why we react. You ever know people, or you, or we all have, someone says something and it triggers something in us, and we don't know why it triggers us. Heck, that could be from when we were 5 years old.
Mhm.
One of the things that you astutely brought up is, such as the Navy SEAL guy, is the way that to heal that is to thank yourself for protecting you. But I don't need that help anymore. I'm grateful that you did this. And because of that, when you can regress into that situation and say, what are the positives that came out of that? Who did you become because of this situation? Thank you. And I don't need your help anymore. And so it's like negotiating this conversation within yourself.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that, if you say, for the last 39 years that I've probably done every night before I go to bed, that I have, that's the one thing that has never changed. I've tried different morning routines, from journaling and gratitude and focusing in on what I'm going to create and accomplish that day, to writing down that methodology. That changes. The morning routine changes. The evening routine has never changed.
So you consciously put your subconscious to work every night.
Yeah.
Well, I think that everybody has a different way, and when somebody says you got to do this routine, and we're just fighting it with our own existence, there's probably something else that it's unfair advantage comparing to others, but it works for us. Just like you said, I'm persistent. Persistence is my superpower. It's just one thing I can bet on every single time. It comes
No,
from
that's why you like Chet Holmes, because he like pig-headed discipline and determination.
I love Chet Holmes. I think he's the greatest, most underrated sales guy in the world.
It's funny. I was having a conversation with Chet. I was their top.
You know him personally before he passed?
Yeah, I was a top closing speaker.
Wow.
So when I left corporate America and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, I met Chet at an event called Speakers Authors Networking Group. I remember where I met him in the hallway. I remember the conversation. I remember who he was with, because I know I'm friendly with him today. And he followed up with me. He said, your website sucks. He's like, you should come work for us. And I said, I appreciate it, and I'm figuring it out on my own. And I ended up going to work for him. What happened is, and this is how I met him, I became their top closing speaker within 90 days, increased their close ratio by over 63.4% in less than 90 days. Speaking, training entrepreneurs, and then selling the $5,000 ultimate business mastery system. And that's how I made money. It was a part-time thing. But it got me time to talk and then go And when he was sick, I got a chance to fill in for him speaking. But and I do know Amanda very well. I'm friends with her. So his daughter. So what happened is I got a call one day from the vice president saying, "Hey, are you available tonight?" And I said, "Sure." Yeah, for what? And he said, "I've got laryngitis." And I said, "So why are you calling me?" And he said, "I'm supposed to do this new webinar on hiring sales superstars tonight, and I can't do it. And can you deliver it?" And I said, "Well, you're telling me 2 hours from now, and you want me to give a 2-hour training on something I've never seen before?" And I said, "Send me over the slides." I'm like, "I don't know what this means. I'm skipping it. I don't know what this means. I'm deleting slides. I knew nothing what they were talking about." And then he says, "Oh, by the way, the CEO of the company is going to be listening in, and Chet's going to wonder how this is going because this was his idea. And you're going to be selling a $2,000 hiring superstars training package at the end of it." And I'm like, "Okay." So I started it off. I got these slides. I mean, it was like 2 hours. It was like over 120 slides. And I couldn't learn that in 2 hours. So, but I knew I could tell a story and I can connect with the pain of the people. And so I opened up finding out who was in the room and, why they were there. And I then I said, "Okay, over the past 10 years, I built 2 8-figure companies, one from 0 to $45 million in 5 years, one from 0 to 10 million in 5 years. How many of you in the next 2 hours want to learn how to hire me?"
That's a good one.
And I started going off and I ad-libbed almost the entire thing, right? And the funny thing is my phone was facing up and Doug's texting me saying, "What the hell are you saying?" He's saying, "I'm getting text messages from the CEO of the company saying, 'Who the F is this guy? He's not following the script.'" And he was going off about me.
There's no pig-headed discipline here.
And so I said, "Yeah, I had pig-headed discipline. That's how I created what I did." So anyway, I said, "Don't interrupt me." And I turned over my phone. And because it was on a webinar. It was a webinar that night. It was like a webinar. So I'm like, "Don't interrupt me. Don't take me out of my zone." Anyway, at the end of it, I closed, I think 76% of the room on this, the first time I ever delivered it.
That's a high closing ratio.
I know. And so what happened is afterwards, I'm like, "Dude, what the F were you doing texting me during this?" He's like, "What the hell were you saying?" "But dude, the CEO wants to call you. I'm just letting you know he wants to call you." I'm like, "For what?" He's like, "He was so pissed, but then when you closed such a high percentage of the room, he wants to talk to you." So he talked to me and he's like, "Chet wants to talk to you." I'm like, "Okay." So then Chet was trying to sell me on becoming a consultant for the company. In fact, I had the email that Chet sent me from that, and I just sent that to Amanda, his daughter, last month after that meeting. But the funny thing is, Chet and I talked. That's when he had his cancer. He sounded pretty good. We talked for over 2 hours that night. And it was because of that conversation that he asked me, "What do I want?" I said, "I'd love to be able to, for when you can't go speak at live events, I'd love to be able to speak for you." And so that was the opportunity I got to start speaking live for Chet. When he also hired me, made me a vice president, and put me on special projects. And we started building out. That never got delivered because he passed away. He started, it was a special, we were working on marketing funnels for them because most of the leads came from Sirius XM radio at the time. And so we were working in online marketing funnels for the company. So, all that happened. And it's funny, I told Chet that McDonald's story because I did it before. I was using education-based marketing and I was using those kind of hooks before. And he's like, can I use that story? Can I tell other people that story? I said, Chet, you can tell anyone you want that story. So that was my introduction. And it's also because someone said, can you deliver something in less than 2 hours? And I know you got to talk for 2 to 2.5 hours, and you never practiced before. So for me, to this day, I had a client once, I was speaking at their event. I had a 2.5 hour keynote training. I had people doing I turned into a workshop, and they were doing an exercise. 2 hours into it, I had a half an hour left. They came up to me and said, can you go another 2 hours? We were off on timing, and we need to fill in 2 hour time slot. Can you go 2 more hours? I said, yes.
I would say the same thing. I was like, all right.
And so always say yes to opportunities. That was an opportunity to challenge myself, to see what I could create, what I could come up with. And I made a magical experience for everyone in the room. In fact, for that client, he didn't have a high-end program. And I said, we should create an inner circle training program for you. And he's like, and we should charge $15,000. He said, my people won't pay that. And I said, I think they will. He said, what about 10? And I said, what about $12,000 a month? And he's like, we won't get 10 people. And I said, I think you'll get 30 people. And then the Bob, who's on my team, I said, Bob will deliver. He's going to do a sales training tomorrow. And then the next day he'll do the pitch for this. I said, I think Bob said we'll close 20. The client said he'll close 10. And I said, we're going to close 30. And we closed 26.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I need to close 36 on 12 grand a month.
There you go. So anyway, it was fun. And, always, so that was a great experience getting to know Chet and working with him on the special project. And to this day, having a friendship with his daughter and, being someone who can be there to collaborate with her is fun because, Chet did make a great impact on people. To this day, business mastery, a lot of the content in that business mastery program that Tony Robbins teaches is Chet Holmes's information.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, every single great sales guy I had the privilege to be in the presence of, every single great sales guy that I admire, when I go deeper, they would say Chet is the OG.
He's
every
OG.
Single one.
So,
yeah, every single one would say Chet Holmes is the very best.
Well, he was what Chet, and Chet was an amazing salesperson. Is he the best in the world? I don't know. Chet did the better job of telling his story and putting it into a program that sold to other people, right? Than anyone else.
Just delivering the information.
The way he delivered it, he was bigger than life. What he's created, the legacy that he created. So
he has a way of simplifying very complicated things that are not actually complicated.
Yeah, a lot of it today that you have to be careful with because the society we're in today, some of the strategies and things that he would do could get you in trouble. So, you also have to remember the times that we're in today.
What do you think changed the most? How would you close 36 people on a $12,000 a month inner circle membership?
Well, it depends.
Because everybody's looking for community.
Well, it was $1,000 a month or $12,000 a year.
Oh, $12,000 a year. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think right now the need for community is even bigger than back in the day.
Yeah. So here's the thing. And we just did this for a client of mine. So how do you do it? You add value, and you make the inner circle not about what they're going to get. Because if it's just about content and information, you can get, as you asked me when I talked about Wim Hof, you said, can I just go on YouTube and watch a video?
Right.
Okay. Yes, you can. And You can get deeper level of information and guidance if you buy a program, right? The same thing is true for when you're teaching in a seminar. People can get most of the information out there for free. Everything we talked about, the strategies, they can read somewhere in a book. Someone has written something about this somewhere. And what you get is proximity. So you get the mentorship. But I suggest people today focus more in on in community. But the problem is, if you're going to have a community, you better deliver on that community and make it about serving the people in the room and letting people know that you care. I won't say names, but I was in a mastermind group last year that was more than a six-figure investment to
I'm in a
join.
mastermind with 5-figure investment. Pretty solid
I'm
5-figure.
in others that are a five-figure investment, but I made 2 six-figure investments last year. Okay, in masterminds. One of them had less than 30% renew. And I can venture a guess why, because I'm not naming names, but when I would say this, make yourself, if I always look at everything being a lesson. So the lessons are, if you're going to ask people to make an investment, you need to at least reach out once a quarter and just say, hey, I'm thinking about you. How are you doing? Any way I can support you?
Yeah, that's
No,
good.
but so
How do
little
how do
thing,
you?
how do you get people in?
Yeah.
You create a community that they want to be part of, and then they can see that there's going to be enough value for them to be in it. But
What if
the
you don't
lessons,
have anybody yet? You got to start from scratch.
start adding a lot of value and get a lot of people following you through adding value to them, like you are with your show that you're doing. Add value to people, and then put a QR code. You should have a QR code, not just your logo. You should have a QR code on every video, that when people see this, even if they see it on YouTube, they scan it and it takes them, hey, would you like to be able to solve every problem, so you love with all your heart and never give up? Do what you love, be true to who you are. I'm reading the sign behind you right now. But would you like the 5 secrets that you can implement today? Put your name in here, put your cell phone in here, and they'll come to you instantly. Boom. Now all of a sudden you're creating your list, and you're turning it from your list, from traffic that you're paying for, which are ads, to traffic that you own, which is your list. And now you continually add value. Now, you put people on a webinar, you invite people to an event, you build the relationship that they want to be around you. They see you as having information that they don't have, and you give them that opportunity. And then you have an event. You teach them about, hey, by the way, some of you are going to want to be in our inner circle. Some of you are going to want to be in our community. So for those of you who do, I'm going to tell you about it. If you're not interested in it, that's okay. So,
I never ran ads. Every single client I got is either through referral or repeat loyal client. Never ran ads in my life. And I know I've lost millions of dollars not doing that.
yeah, well, you have to decide how you want to target the people you want to target. I mean, ads are one way, may or may not be right for you. Where you may want to run ads is low-end ads to get people into a lead magnet on the front end, to get people who don't know you consuming your content. So how do you do? So there's different strategies and philosophies that you can utilize in creating the top of the funnel of awareness.
Yeah. I kind of always stayed away from it, which I know it's a huge mistake in my business. Never understood all these funnels, and just I've always been relational. Just
Well, you can be relational, and people have to find about you somehow.
I know this is why.
This is
Like,
why we're talking right now. I just needed to remind you.
yeah, you definitely needed to remind me that.
Hey, by the way,
And
how did you find out about me? Where did you see me? I'm curious.
I've been following you on Instagram. I've been watching
Okay.
your posts. I've followed you, and I'm like, this guy is very similar to my beliefs. I need to know him. And I don't know if you felt this, but as soon as we jumped, like we really connected energy wise.
Oh yeah, I know.
That's what I've experienced.
And also, it's funny when you said you were from Bulgaria. My daughter's fiance's best friend's from Bulgaria too.
Really?
Yeah.
So I think that your heart is open, you know, and we just connected right away, which doesn't happen often with people. Like when we were just chatting on Instagram, I didn't know what to expect from who you really are. Most people are different than what they present on Instagram and in their videos, but you're not. You're very genuine. You're very real, and actually, you exceeded my expectations. We connected right away from the first second on, and sometimes uh, I actually value that more than anything because I my definition for sales is transfer of energy. I'm big on energy. I think that um, we have a lot of things in common. The way we understand relationships, the way we understand sales, business. So that's why I felt like I'm not gonna give up on this guy.
Well, I've just been very busy with traveling, and you caught me. The great news is you caught me on today. I was planning on recording videos this afternoon, so instead I met with you.
If you want to use this video, I can let you use it.
Oh, send it to
Whatever.
me. Send it to me. I'll post it out. My team will post it out. Um,
Yeah.
the you said something. Can I share something with you that I do every time before I speak or before I meet with a potential client?
Yeah.
I don't overanalyze anything. I literally, before our time today, I close my eyes, take a deep breath, clear my mind, and I say, God, please let the words enter my mind, hit my heart, and come out of my mouth so I can serve who for you is to serve your audience, to serve to you and your audience to get whatever they need. But before I speak on stage, I say the exact same thing. So that way I'm taking out of my hands. It's not me. I'm a conduit. I'm a vessel. I have knowledge. I have experience, and it's a lifetime of experience. But who am I to say what is the right thing to say? And if I let it go into flow state and I create that flow state before every conversation, every potential client meeting, they tend to work out much better in my mind.
That's another thing we have in common because I have exactly the same prayer before every interview, before every workshop, before every in-house training that I go to, and I literally ask God to get me out of the way. Be like,
Yeah.
move me out of the way, out of your way, and flow through me, and express your creative abilities through me.
I
And I
like
just want to be an observer like everyone else. And those are some of the best things. Like I watch some old content of mine where I'm really removing myself, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Where did that come from? And so we have exactly the same prayer, and I try to be a vessel, get myself out of the way, learn from the limitless intelligence. And I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned the guardian angels, I wanted to ask you the question about God, and here you are sharing about God. I was going to ask you, do you believe in God, and what role God has in your life and faith, and what God do you believe in, and things like that. But you started it.
so. Obviously, I do. Um, I mean, I believe there's one God. So, if you're asking me about faith, I'm Jewish. You know, so in my mind, there's one God of the universe. But do I pray? Yes, I pray. I pray every day. Um, and I tend to be attracted to and to attract people who have a faith base. um, Most of my clients are have a strong faith. Most of them are Christians, and we have love and mutual respect for each other.
Yeah, there's just one slight aspect of disagreement there.
That's one slight aspect, but you know what, he was born in Bethlehem. He was in Israel. He was Jewish, so we're all connected together.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of Israel, what's going on? Are you following closely the
Well, if you
situation?
watch my social media, you'll know that my son's over there. If you saw the
Is
TV,
he?
yeah, if you can see, I have a TV I was just on, actually interviewed 2 days ago again for the second time, and a reporter TV interview is coming to my house on Tuesday in regards to it. But my son's serving in the IDF, so
Wow.
he graduated from college and went backpacking around Europe, and then ended up in Israel, and told us he's staying.
Well, I saw your rant where you were saying, "Unfollow me right now if you're not."
I
Uh,
lost 800 followers, by the way, that
oh,
month, the
big
last
deal.
30 days. Who cares? Whatever. Those
They
people,
weren't.
I didn't need them following me anyway.
They weren't supposed to be following you anyways.
Yeah.
But there is a risk, and you said it in your video. There is a risk when you are taking one side of the problem, and you go to one extreme end. There's always a risk of losing followers and gaining more true followers, like establishing bigger bond with some real followers. So it's terrible that people are dying on both ends.
Oh, no one wants anyone to die. In fact, that was the interview that I had the other night. Um, is no one that I know wants anyone to die. No one wants anyone to die. Um, you know, and here's a true fact. If Israel put down their guns, there would be no more Israel. There would be no more Jews.
Yeah, that's true.
And if the Palestinians put down all their weapons, there would be peace. So when you look at it, a lot of this, and what I'm seeing in today's, and I was alluding to it when I'm talking about today's society and the protests that are going on, is that, if you go back in history and you go back to biblical history, who's the colonizer here? It's certainly not the Jews. That was given, if you believe in the Bible and you believe in God, it goes back to Genesis, where God gave Abraham Israel. Abraham made a purchase. Why? He didn't want just something given to him. He wanted it to be purchased. And he's buried there in Hebron right now. I've been there, by the way.
I
And
really want to go.
oh my gosh, it's amazing. We can have a whole nother conversation about Israel, the places to go to see. And I truly understand why, when my son went there, he felt like he belonged there.
It's a holy place.
I went there. Yes, it is. When I went there when I was 22 years old and backpacked, I probably would have stayed there too if I wasn't with my girlfriend, who's now my wife. And so I understand the connection and the spiritual connection that my son has. I spoke to him today. Met his commander and met some of his friends. It was kind of cool. He did a video call this morning. It's 7:30 a.m. I just got out of the shower, and I have a towel. My wife's yelling, Dave, where are you? And I came out like, what's wrong? I'm wearing a towel. And he's on a video call, and I got to meet everyone. I said, Josh, I don't have any clothes on right now. But anyway, if you ask what my thoughts are, I want peace. I also do believe that Hamas is an evil organization. What this is a fight versus good versus evil, light versus dark. You're talking light versus barbarism. Who we are as Western civilization today in the United States and Israel and some other countries is we have a different belief system. We would never go and just murder families, torture people, put babies in an oven and cook them alive, cut babies out of someone's belly. And now obviously you know where I'm going with this. It's deeply personal, not only as being a Jew, but as being an American. We can't ever fathom that people would operate this way. And when I see people in this country celebrating that gets me angry. At the same time, what do we need to do? We need to be a light into the world, all of us. We need to do more good. We need to do more good deeds. We need to pray more, and we need to expect that other people are going to see the light and realize that one country's not, why? Look what's going on. listen, there's what's going on in between Russia and Ukraine. You've got, Muslims over a million Muslims that are in camps in China. No one says anything about that. No one said anything when Bashar Assad killed over 200 Palestinians. This has nothing to do about Israel. It has to do with the Jewish people, because if you want to go back in history, and everyone today wants to talk about colonizer versus colonize and all this. Listen, read the book. We were there before the Muslim religion was created. So, I don't need to go into it. And if someone disagrees with me, oh, well, they disagree with me. But I have facts and history on my side.
Yeah. And by the way, when it comes down to killing children, that's what abortion is. Americans have been doing it for a while now.
I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. That's probably that's a third rail conversation that is interesting. But if you were going to ask me, would I ever want someone that I know to have one? The answer is no.
I mean, if you see abortion in like a later stage,
I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty.
It's killing a kid.
Yeah, it's killing a kid. A kid with heartbeat. And just a few months ago, or like a year ago, there was a huge debate on that, and a lot of the people were supporting that right here in America. And now the same people are like, "Oh, this is such a terrible thing to do. What's going on there? It's so unacceptable." And that's exactly the same thing that happens during abortions. So
people conveniently look at things the way they want to fit their narrative. Okay, I'll tell you a story. I just put if you're not on my newsletter, if you're in my newsletter, you read this article. I was called "What You See Is What It Is."
Yeah.
So based upon our preconceived biases, these people are good, these people are evil. I'll give you an example. I gave actual examples in the newsletter article where I was talking about 3 objects. I said, which of these objects is larger, the largest? It was a perspective. They were all the same, but everyone's going to say the one that is closest to them is looks like it's closest to you is the largest, right? Because our minds are preconceived to position what we see as being truth. Okay. Mm-hmm. Same thing happens when we're investing and we're making investing decisions. Same thing happens because of whichever news station, the propaganda that we get from TV. We're preconceived to believe something to be true because someone is telling us it to be true. As an example, I used when the missile supposedly hit that hospital, and they said that Israel bombed the hospital, which we know is standing. We just evacuated a lot of people from it. We, as the Jewish people, Israel moved a lot of people from it, and it wasn't true. And riots happened. They canceled a meeting with the president in the United States. That's a whole nother story, but I won't go there today. And there was riots across the world, calling for death to Israel and death to Jews. And what happened is, 2 days later, it came out that wasn't true. And as a Palestinian Islamic Jihad missile misfired, it hit in a parking lot, it killed some people, but all these people are alive. There weren't retractions, and people were like, well, I don't believe that it's not true. I believe that so that is what you see is what it is what you preconceive something to be. You want that cognitive bias to show up so you can say whatever you want to say. But that's
and the same exact thing happened with Ukraine and Russia war. Like Ukrainian missile was hitting Kiev, and they were saying it's Russian. And
I heard that happen too. But then, yes, I heard that happen
when it first the Ukraine and Russia war, because nobody's talking about that now.
Well, it's still horrible. You know how many people have been killed on both sides?
A lot, but for some reason people don't talk about it anymore. It's like new things now are on the and when it first happened, I'm like, it's 2021 or 2022. I don't remember when it started. I think it started in 2022 or 2021.
I know it.
Why are we at war? Like, my brain couldn't comprehend. Like, this is like barbarian stuff that are happening right now in today's society, it was abnormal. Like how did we mature from the Second World War? Like what changed in the meantime? Like why are we dealing with this? Why are
And they're acting more barbaric than they did back then.
yeah. And now people are like getting used to war like it's a normal thing, and they're not focusing on peace.
You know why? Peace is not a normal thing. If you go to genetic code in the world from the Middle Ages to the barbarism ages to the Crusades, what have we been as humans for most of eternity?
The Crusades. You better become Christian or else. Better make the right choice, Christian or die. you know.
I mean, yeah. But if you look at and countries taking over countries and conquest, peace is a relatively. And here's my hope. My hope is that people realize that if we put down all of our weapons and we find out the commonalities, because everyone has more commonalities than the things that aren't common. And if we start focusing on the commonalities and using that as a bridge, it's great. But what you see going on in this country, you brought up earlier, is we have most of the people are here somewhere in this sense. You've got people very far on one side, very far on one side, who are the vocal minority, but they're creating the narrative and causing more divide. And when you have divide, we're seeing this divide across the world, and people, it's sickening and it's sad.
Yeah. What role does the media have when it comes down to perception? Because
What you see is what it is.
Is what it is.
Yeah, it's all propaganda from the time we're in kids in school. It's funny, we were talking last night at dinner because his family grew up in the former Soviet Union, the USSR. And, I was talking about when I was a kid, we used to have drills where we'd, if Russia invaded us, if bombs were coming, we'd hide up under the desks in the school, like the desks are going to do anything. And they said, it was they said we did the exact same things, and we were told that the US is going to invade us, and we were told Russia was going to. I mean, all that is propaganda that creates divide and hate amongst people. And we were all told the same thing. None of it's true.
Yeah, it almost blew up with the hockey games too.
Oh yeah, I remember when. Yeah, I remember that too.
But there's a more and more proof that 9/11 was set up by the government. And I don't mean to go into like conspiracy talk, but just to create the big enemy.
Well, first of all,
terrorists.
Yeah, I don't know that, but I do know that there was Osama bin Laden, and they had a whole organization of people that wanted to destroy the West. Whatever happened, I lost family in the World Trade Center, so it happened. It's horrible. For a short period of time, it brought the country closer together.
Yeah, definitely. From unity standpoint, it was there was.
But it's like the whole generation has forgotten about that, and at the same time, I don't think the United States should be conquesting the entire world either.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching Larry King when he was still alive, interviewing George Bush, and he asked him, "Did you find any weapons of mass destruction?" And he said, "No, we didn't." And that's after $1 trillion spent on war. So
I think they wanted to take out Saddam Hussein. Well, that was a different war, but
whatever they wanted.
Here's the thing: the U.S. is really good at starting wars. We're not good at exiting them and having peace at the. You create a vacuum that creates a situation many times that's worse than was in the beginning.
Yeah, and different than the way hippies didn't want to fight in Vietnam. Now there's many of these Afghani and Iraqi soldiers who came back and they're just not sure of the purpose of the war, and they have PTSD because of not really sure if their purpose was fulfilled as soldiers, as somebody who risks their life because
Yeah.
of political games and gains. So, do you think there is a possibility that Hamas was not created by Palestinians, but created by like political interests? So it creates this conflict because one thing I
Well,
feel everyone agrees on both ends is that Hamas is a terrible organization that nobody supports. Even I think
that's
some
not
of the
true. That's not true. If you ask, they just did surveys, even in the West Bank. They interviewed Palestinians, and they said, do you support Hamas or Israel? It was overwhelmingly. I don't remember the exact statistics, so I won't quote it, but it was supporting Hamas. And the problem here, you want to talk about indoctrination in the Palestinian school curriculum. They teach that Jews are evil. Um, they stole the land from us, and your whole mission in life is to kill Jews. In fact, in the West, Palestinian Authority pays people to kill Jewish people. In Hamas, in Gaza, they've had Gaza. Israel left Gaza in 2005. Gaza's been a standalone authority with billions of dollars going into it. It just so happens that four founders of Hamas are now multi-billionaires. So they didn't put the money into the people. They could have turned it into Singapore. It's the size of Singapore. Look at what Singapore became. So if you didn't build tunnels and you didn't build weapons and you put it all into infrastructure on a beautiful coastal, like Beirut, Lebanon, used to be this most beautiful city on the coast, until people that are funded right now, that's funded by Qatar and by Iran, but you know, they're using it as their outreach, third party army. Now, who created Hamas? Yeah, I don't disagree with you that Hamas was created as an alternative by government officials, multiple different governments, is an alternative to the Palestinian Authority trying to find a partner in peace that would govern differently.
like if we
Uh,
follow the money, it's probably funded not by Palestinians only, but other entities. One thing that I
right now they're funded right now by Qatar and by Iran.
right. So one thing that I do is I trust my own judgment. Like when COVID happened, the first thing I did is I drove to local hospitals around here to see the dead bodies. And every single parking lot was empty. There was no dead bodies. Nobody was flying into the hospital. There was no emergencies. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna turn off the TV and I'm not gonna trust this news. One thing I've experienced for many years is Ukrainian and Russians living like one country. So in Chicago, there's ton of Ukrainians, ton of Russians, and Ukrainians even introduced themselves as Russians
I know.
years. So once when the war happened, they stopped living together. They started hating each other. You go to Ukrainian restaurant, they make in the restroom there is Putin on the floor, and they piss on him, and I even seen families separated, like a Ukrainian wife and Russian. They would divorce over the war,
Yeah,
and it created a amazing division. I also seen I have plenty of Jewish friends and Palestinian friends here in Chicago, and students and so on, and they on a neutral zone like in America, they live in the same neighborhood. They go to the same grocery stores. They respect and love each other because they have common ground with where they come from. It's like the same lifestyle. So I've
sure.
seen Jewish people and Palestinians living together, loving together, respecting each other.
Yeah,
And now there's a huge separation between them because of the conflict. And they've had this conflict for 100 years, 50 at least, but now it's much worse. Just like Ukrainians and Russians had quiet conflict for 50 years, but now it's official. They're
Well,
killing each other. So how much of divide and conquer is happening? How much is there maybe somebody else that wants this separation and this conflict because
well,
it's
you're asking some questions that I'm not privy to, because I'm not in the government. But if you look at any time in history, if you've got problems at home and you want to take the focus off what you're doing or what's going on here, you create a conflict somewhere else in the world. So that way, so has there, this is another 2-hour conversation, which I don't have time for
yeah,
today. I don't have
I
time for
know.
today. But
I'm
to answer
sorry.
your question, um, could some of look what happened. US gives $6 billion back, so back to Iran. A few weeks later, Iran does, pulls the trigger on their puppet, right? Why? If we did not give them it was their money, but if we kept it locked up, they would have had reason not to do it. I can tell you this: if there was a different administration in office, this probably Russia, Ukraine wouldn't have happened. Hamas wouldn't have been
Yeah,
the barbaric massacres that they are. Why? Because they would have been scared. One thing that I remember from Reagan was, peace through strength, right? And you have to have a mutual respect for the other party. And at the same time, I look at all this and I'm like, this is bullshit. We can all get along. I have friends who are Muslim. I get along fine with them. In fact, the funny thing is, silently, a lot of them tell me they're supporting Israel, in this
well,
situation.
that's what I'm
So
saying. A lot of Muslim friends that I have, they think Hamas is
it's horrible.
how there are radical Muslims and regular Muslims. The regular Muslims hate the radical Muslims because they create really bad name for them. And
I,
and
I I have someone who works for me who's Muslim, and here's what they said to me: these people want to kill me as much as they want to kill you.
yeah, yeah, it's terrible. And I think it's creating unity between Christians and Jewish because Christians are supporting Israel, following the
Yeah,
scripture,
yeah.
following revelations and all that. And Christians have always admitted that Jewish people are God's people. And even though
By the way,
they've
we're
all,
not. By the way, I want to say this, and when we say God's chosen people, it doesn't mean that we're better than anyone else. I want everyone to know this. We do
they're
not
just
believe we're better than
they-
anyone else.
throughout history, they've been hard to manage.
Well,
like, like Moses split the Red Sea, and a few weeks later, they were like, um, there was
but
the
here's the
story.
thing. So when you go into the stories and you look at the commentaries, you have to look at why. And I try to say when I read something in the Torah or the Bible, the Old
Mhm.
Testament, every week, what do I take from what happened then that I can utilize today? And what are the parallels to today? These are lessons for us all.
Yeah,
It's history. It's history. And if we don't understand history and what became of it, we're only going to bound to be repeating it over and over and over again. Right. So, it is, but here's the thing. Why do people, the communist country call us capitalists? The capitalist countries called us communists. We're less than 0.2% of the world's population, but we have a big voice because we won't quit. We have pig-headed discipline and determination. We're not easily, you talk about, we won't, people wanted to kill us. We're still here. The Romans, well, they're not here anymore. They conquested. So all these people who took, so why do people hate us? I don't know. Here's the thing I can say is we won't give up our faith. And that's one of the things
yeah,
that people, I think, have always had a hard time, that we won't give up our faith. And I believe that, so when you look at our belief is that the only thing that we have a higher standard is a to uphold certain laws. But other than that, everyone else, if everyone abide by the Noahide laws, this world would be a much better place.
I agree with you 1,000,000%, because the commitment to the faith is allowing Jewish people across the world to pass on generational wealth, not only financially but also
Spiritual.
spiritual wealth, and the compound effect is there, where any other culture had lost faith with generations, or definitely kind of allowed mixed water in, and it just wasn't as consistent. But like I said, I have many Jewish friends, and when I look at how they set up their children and what they teach their children and the principles their children are raised by, there's no other culture that does that. There's no other culture.
Well, I don't know, because I only know what we do, and what we chose to do in our family. I don't know everyone, but at the same time, I haven't read this book. You want to talk about a book that I want to read that I hear is really good, it's on my list, but I haven't, is Principles by Ray Dalio.
It's on my save for later on Amazon.
I have it. I bought it. It's like this thick. So as soon as I got it, I'm like, I don't have time for that one right now.
I know.
But when you look at how do we create a better world, we operate by principles. And if you understand why conflicts happen, is people aren't willing to say what the red lines to cross. You have to be very specific and clear. This is what it is, and this is what I believe. And if you believe it, great. If you don't, that's okay. But this is who I am, and this is who I want to work with. The whole idea of creating principles, core values, principles. What do you live by? How do you operate your business? I mean, it's one of the things I did about 4 or 5 years ago. My business is created core values, and I told everyone in the team, if you want to know how to make a decision, look at the core values. And I made sure every week that we go through the core values, so everyone on the team knows what they are and can talk about them. And that's how you make principles, core values. That's how you make it living and breathing.
What are the core values for your company?
PREACH is our acronym.
Oh, really?
Yes. Positive, results focused, expect excellence, take action, collaborate, and have a ball all the time.
Have a ball. That's like have fun.
Have fun. Have fun.
That's
Make
awesome.
sure if you're going to do it, let's have fun doing it.
I love it. Mine is Target. Very similar to that for our company. But I want to ask you one.
Then we have to wrap up, because
yeah, we're going to wrap up. Last question. What's your prediction of what's going to happen to America, since we both love this country? If you were a betting man, which I know you're not, or maybe you are, what do you think it's going to happen in the next couple of years?
I think next year or so are going to be very hard. But it's not just going to be in this country. It's going to be around the world. We're, what the world has done with COVID and how it took the whole world off track. I agree with you, by the way, on a lot of things there with COVID. I'm not vaccinated. If people want to get vaccinated, go do what you want, but don't tell me what to do.
Right.
That could be another 2-hour conversation again, just on that topic.
We'll schedule another call in a few months.
In regard to what's going to happen, I think we're going to have some hard times. We've been in a recession, but it's been propped up artificially through wars, and creating and driving revenue through the industrial complex. And so it artificially has made our GDP look higher than it is. I think that we're going to go into recession and possibly, God forbid, even worse. And here's what I can tell you. My belief is, and this goes with my positive expectancy, that on the back end of this, we will be in a better place. It will help us usher in and realize what is important in this world. You talked about revelation. Well, you know what? There's a lot of things in prophecy that people are wondering is now end times. I don't know. Is the Messiah going to come? I hope so. Sooner than later, because or come back. How different people believe.
All right, that's interesting. So you do believe in Jesus a little bit.
Well, I say come, and then I know other people are saying come back. So I'm like covering both. I'm good either way,
All right.
Yeah, so, and at the same time, you know, I want that piece when people can focus in on being good humans. Each of us has the spark of God in all of us, which means if that's the case, we should be loving each other and focusing on good versus evil and hate.
Yeah,
That's a good way to end.
that's a great way to end. Dave, I had an enormous pleasure talking to you.
You as well.
I think we're going to be lifetime friends.
Sounds good. I'm going to be up in Chicago soon, so in a week.
Let's
So-
connect. Let's
so
go for dinner.
Just message me. Message me on Instagram.
I'll message you so you can give me your cell and we can have dinner together.
Sounds good, man.
I'd love to. Make it a great day.
Make it an awesome day. Yes.
God bless.
You too.